I'm Sackbot Barbecue.
And I'm Giggleclutz.
And today we are talking about Mutazione.
Mutazione.
Yeah.
So, Mutazione is a game that was released by a developer named gute fabrik. They are out of Copenhagen, Denmark, and it was released in 2019. So it's not a very old game at all. And I'm going to read you the description on the Steam page, because I think it's a very good one. A mutant soap opera, where a small town gossip meets the supernatural. Explore the Mutazione community as Kai, as she cares for her ailing grandfather, discovers magical gardens, new friends, and old secrets. They can survive an apocalyptic meteor strike, but can they survive their small town drama?
Dun dun dun!
Oh! And, you know... I'm just smiling. I'm just taking a moment to smile because the game is very chill. In a really fast-paced world where it kind of feels like the world is falling apart right now, it's nice to be able to spend some time in a very chill space. And I really appreciate that about this game.
Yeah, so I was the one of us who found this game in the first place, and in case you guys don't know, I kind of dive on itch a lot. Whenever there's a big charity bundle happening, I typically at least take a look at it, even if I don't buy it. And Mutazione was in one of these bundles, and I played it on my stream for Tiny Game Tuesday. Honeyshuckle plugging here. And it was so relaxing that I thought my mom would really like it. And I don't want to speak for you, but I think you did.
I really did.
I think you liked it well enough that you bought it for yourself on Steam?
I did, yes, I did buy it for myself. I never play it there, but I did buy it for myself on Steam.
And then this year, we got Sackbot to play it as well.
That's me, and I can confirm I have indeed played this game and enjoyed it.
But yeah, like, if you know me, you know I love character-driven narratives, and this is definitely one of those. So, like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, yeah, this is right up my alley.
So, Sackbot, do you want to describe the setting, the Isle of Mutazione?
Okay, so, to follow up on the Steam description, the island where the game is set, it was once a bustling cityscape of, some significant degree. They had a monorail. It's like big, large-scale public transportation kind of deal, but one day it was hit by a meteorite. Big one. And it destroyed a bunch of stuff and mutated everything. The plants, the animals, and the people alike all changed. Much of the settlement that was there all collapsed in one form or another, but, folks still living there. It's small, it's humble, but it's still thriving.
Yeah, and
after all that strife.
We're being a little vague, because more than half of the fun and the joy of playing this game is having the conversations and discovering more about the island, because the whole game starts, and I'll let Honeyshuckle describe the opening scene because she adores it. It's very cinematic, but I'll tell you that Kai was born on the mainland. Her mom left Mutazione when she was a young girl, and so Kai has never been there, but her grandfather lives on the island. And I think that mutants exist in other places. I don't think all the mutants live on Mutazione, but the majority of them, I think, do. I'm not sure, though. It's unclear in my recent skim of stuff. And I didn't dive all the way through the game again because I didn't want to accidentally spoil it. I wanted to make sure I had vague, very pleasant impressions of this game because I really do want to say out loud, I encourage people to play it. I think it's a worthy narrative.
So, Kai has to go visit the island to care for her ailing grandfather, who she's never met before, only heard stories, some of which may have some passive-aggressive tones to it, because Grandma and Grandpa were not really on great terms when they broke it off. We don't exactly have the details, but the drama begins early, let's just say that. So you're on this boat ride, and the captain of this very, very small boat, like this basically 2-room cabin, he just is very... how do you describe grobby?
He's very, grobby.
Yeah, kinda gruff, not very observant.
self-centered.
Yeah. He doesn't mean any harm, but he's not paying attention enough to notice if people are uncomfortable with the way that he speaks or how he proceeds with them. And that literally is how detailed these characters are. You only have these tiny conversations with these characters. You know, it's like 5 or 6 lines of dialogue and such rich characterization in such a small space. It's chef's kiss. It's a beautiful thing.
Because, like, again, this all comes across in just this opening section where you're learning how the dialogue system works. And, like, they actually kind of show you immediately that, like, your choices don't necessarily matter because Grob cuts you off, like, 3 times. Like, it does a great job of showing, like, don't stress out about these choices. They're here to keep you engaged.
The most consequence your decisions are going to have is a momentary disappointment on your part.
Well, I mean, you also get to hear slightly differing lore, because sometimes you can, like, address one person or a different person, so you can kind of hear their perspective on something.
And then frustratingly, but understandably, you don't get to go back. It's like, it's lost, and there's no save files, so you just have to roll with it and accept it like life, that there's only so much you can cover in the time that you have.
Mm-hmm. So after you have this conversation with the captain, Kai just kind of steps outside onto the boat at large on the deck.
The deck.
Yeah, on the deck, and watches the sea go by. And that's when, like, the title music kicks in. We have this sweeping track with gentle vocalization as we just coast over the ocean for, well, in-game hours. Like, time ticks by. The sun sets, it's nighttime. This boat ride is long.
It takes until morning to get from the mainland to the island.
It is an overnight trip.
Mm-hmm. That's plenty of time to think and be worried about meeting a whole bunch of new people, especially mutants, because Kai outright says that, like, or has the option to say that she's never met mutants before. So that is evidence that, like, these are not all the mutants in the world. Who knows where said mutants might be.
But there aren't a lot of them either, it doesn't seem like. But you're not given a chance to know much about the world at large. You mostly only find out that Mutazione is separated from a mainland. It used to be just like the mainland, pretty much, but now it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
It's ruins of old buildings with current inhabitants. You know, it looks like squatters, but it's not. It's survivors instead. And rather than rebuild, there's so few of them, they just kind of live in the rubble. They just live in shacks and stuff made out of what was there, or the remnants of what was there.
It's, very much both, it's people and nature at large. It's very much a, fallen and reclaimed cityscape.
Which is a very unique setting. Like, I don't see many games kind of taking this approach. I mean, there's a little bit in, like, games like The Last of Us that kind of have setting like this.
In my experience, it's more of a novel setting or a movie setting. It's an interesting take on the post-apocalypse trope, where the whole world didn't go through an apocalypse, just this local area went through an apocalypse. So they're not starting society over from scratch. They still have Grabby going to the mainland twice a week to get them supplies and all of that. But because they live on this communal island, it's revealed to you, not even on day 2, on the evening of your first day there, they don't use money on the island. There is no money. There's Claire, who has a little shop. I'm putting shop in quotation marks with my fingers. You can't see me, but, imagine.
Dancing fingers.
Yeah, shop on her boat, but really it's a mutual aid society where people bring their surplus to Claire. Claire keeps an inventory of it, and if you need anything, you just go to her and she marks in the inventory that it's gone. And that's it. She just keeps track of everything and stores it for people, so that way the surplus isn't distributed. You come and get it if you need it, but she cares for it for you.
You can just come get it if you need it.
Yeah, she also makes the nets.
For fishing, yeah. And everybody just kind of does what they do best, and it seems to work. There's 2 characters who work on infrastructure, there's 2 that work on the shipping, going to get stuff from the mainland and bringing it back, and how they pay for it, I have no idea.
Yeah, and then there's people who tend to the communal spaces.
Mm-hmm. And there's someone who cooks communal food, and they all take care of Nano, who is Kai's grandfather, now that he's fallen ill. And there's somebody who's a hunter on the island and takes care of their meat. And they fish, and it's pretty idyllic. jumping back into it this week to get myself in a better brain space to record this episode, I remember that you start off on an island and you're just like, well, I was just, oh, this place is so cool. I want to know every inch of it. I want to look at all the corners. I want to see every little bit. I don't know if you have this, but it is a common thing for people to want to explore abandoned buildings. And that's what it feels like. It feels like that urge to explore abandoned buildings. To look where people have been, but not where they currently are. And it just grabs onto that aesthetic. It's palatable. Do you want to talk about the aesthetic? I mean, what does this look like? Is the art style?
So, I want you to imagine that you have Muppets in a sort of paper cutout style. A lot of the people kind of look like they could be Muppets, but it's all flat. It's all looks like paper craft, kind of.
But don't let that fool you. It is gorgeous.
Oh yeah, it is lovingly detailed. It's just like...
You would never want someone to actually have to cut out that much paper. It's just the aesthetic.
Yeah,
I'm so glad they made that digitally, but it looks like, yeah. You can have that much love without having to put in that much effort. Thank goodness for technology! Woo!
It's like, the graphics on a granular level and the smallest components are simple little things, but if you get enough simple little things together, you make...
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's like, there is no slight shading. That's, there's shading, but it's all like a construction paper cutout would have shading, where things can have a shadow, but there's no gradient to anything. It's all solid colors in shapes.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. The only issue I have ever had with this style is that sometimes Mew blends into the background.
Mew is a character who is a gray cat person.
Yeah, so when she sits on a gray background, you can't really see her.
Which is, as the hunter of their town, it's like, if any character's gonna do that, that makes sense.
Also, I can really see Mew, using that to her advantage to prank people, to avoid conversations she doesn't want to have, and to just scare the crap out of people now and again. So, yeah, as we said before, all of these characters are very well-rounded and very rich. In fact, as things go on, there is a lot of conflict in interpersonal things happening between this very tight-knit community. Well, I think Nano falling so ill is a catalyst for a lot of things that they've been holding back to start coming out. And, a new person just kind of changes everything, adds a little bit of perspective, and now you can't hide from her what you guys have been hiding from each other in plain sight.
Yeah, and it's just like, I just need to tell somebody who's unbiased.
As Kai, as you go through this, almost everyone starts confiding in you, so you know all about things that these guys should be telling each other, and they're not.
Yeah, again, the description of this game cites it as a soap opera, so...
Yeah, it's a soap opera. It really is.
It's this fascinating balance of both, having a lot of drama to it, while also being, at the same time, a very chill experience overall.
Yeah. You don't ever go and worry that, somebody's gonna murder somebody. None of that kind of drama.
It's more catty. Not to pick on Mew. But, it's more... It's so funny. Picking on each other's reputations somewhat, and it's like, how much does your reputation matter when you only hang out with 10 people? It's like, everyone knows who you are, and they know how they feel about who you are. But it's, that exaggerated importance is something that happens in insular communities, right? And the game demonstrates that very well. Kai can be like, you guys are neighbors and you're stuck with each other. I'm not getting in the middle of this.
Yeah, being an outsider, you can pretty easily, note where everybody's flaws lie in a way that these other people kind of care too much.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to make anybody upset, or just...
They're afraid to damage the relationship of someone they live so close to, but that ends up damaging the relationship anyway. Which I wrote down what I feel one of the major themes of this game is that it's okay to make mistakes. Feels like everybody on the island has either something that's really hard for them to handle emotionally that's happened to them, a trauma, or a secret that they're keeping from absolutely everyone, or everybody's got a little bit of something going on. And right now is just a soft spot for that stuff all to start floating to the surface.
Yeah, I think the only person we don't really get to see much of this secret side is, like, Bopek and Dennis. And Dennis we still get to hear quite a bit about if you go looking for it.
That's true. There's a few characters that are only, like, side characters and you don't have to interact with them, but you can. And
why would you ignore Bopek?
I wasn't mentioning Bopek. I was thinking about the sausages and Princess. But, yeah, we'll talk about the sausages in a little bit because I think it's a side thing. It doesn't really matter to the main plot.
It's got so much charm, though.
It's so poignant and beautiful. It's like my favorite bit, even though there's so much to like. I don't know. I do love the sausages. In a little bit, we'll give you an idea why. Or you guys want to do that now?
I think I'm about ready for the spoiler point.
Alright, so if we haven't convinced you to play, then, we can't convince you to play. But if we have, this is your warning that if you don't want the mysteries revealed, you want to find out as Kai does, then you need to stop now, and the episode can wait from here. And this is your warning. You've been warned.
Finger guns.
Finger guns, yeah. You've been warned. Do not cross. Spoilers ahead.
If you have the opportunity to play this game, I recommend it.
You gonna argue with Sackbot? Are you?
I mean, not over this.
You're siblings, so.
Small town dramas are thing. No. So, we mentioned the sausages, and the sausages are literally these people who look kind of like sausages that are just these sort of orange ovals that walk around.
Little stick legs.
And they're some of the first people that Kai can actually talk to when you have full control of the game and where you get to go. So, like, this is what she hears when she's going and trying to talk to people on the island for the first time.
Right, we're gonna act out a scene for you. It's all about consumer demand.
Not this again.
Right now, the crossing is always 2 days a week, right?
I'm scared of the sea, full of monsters and things.
But we could develop a single-user vehicle.
One time, I heard Spike saw a mermaid.
And people could go whenever they wanted.
Just imagine all those teeth and claws.
What?
I said, just imagine all those teeth and claws.
Have you ever seen a mermaid, Sal?
No, because I'm smart enough to stay away from the sea.
And, oh my freaking goodness.
If you like that, there's more!
Oh my god, and it's this little, like, comic relief. And this criticism of capitalism done through these sausages who one of their
live in
jobs,
a communal society.
They live in a communal society that most of us would see as heaven, and they are trying to create a capitalism. And they're a little insane.
And their actual job is
shoveling manure. So they're manure shoveling sausages who are trying to create a capitalist economy in their communal society.
These are not the antagonists. These are side characters.
Yeah, they're not villains. They're just dorks.
Like, I feel like I have to say that, because in most games we're just like, we are going to take advantage of the small rural town for capitalism, is like the main plot of the game. No, not this case, nope.
No, it may be the main cause of some of the problems that they encounter on a larger scale, but it's a side thing for the most part. It's like, you can't completely skip it, but you can ignore most of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a neat thing with that bit of voice acting we did just now is, like, that's actually a little bit of a peek behind the curtain as to what it's like when we actually play some of these games.
Yeah, we kind of just assign ourselves some characters, and we voice act games that don't have voice acting.
Yeah, and Honeyshuckle's good enough at it that when I've watched her on her stream play a few games, and then I am exposed to them later, I am shocked to remember that they are not actually voice acted.
I do my best.
I've got a pretty talented kid. I'm very proud.
My mother's very proud.
You can tell me in the comments whether or not you think it should be, but I'm not going to believe you if you disagree with me.
So, what about this story do we want to most talk about? Because there's like one overarching story with your grandfather, and then there's a whole bunch of episodic kind of stories leading into one another.
Well, there's like the mystery
Mm-hmm.
on the island that's like, what on earth is Grandpa doing? What is he hiding? And
Why does he want me to do magic?
What the heck is Gramps, like, what is his role in the society that's so important?
Yeah, everybody else has, like, pretty distinct jobs, and, like, all Grandpa tells you is that, oh, I'm a shaman. Cool, what does that mean? Well, go get this drum. You'll understand.
I don't understand.
You will.
Yes, but I don't now.
Shh, you will. That's what most of your conversations with Grandpa sound like.
and it's frustrating as heck for you and for Kai.
Yeah.
You get frustrated listening to him do it, and Kai echoes that as she navigates these vague conversations.
You know, one thing, again, about his character is just, like, he has some reasons for wanting to drip feed stuff, but at the same time, yeah, it's also a pain in the ass.
Yeah, he's overcompensating for stuff.
He's also wrong.
Uh-huh.
He's wrong. Okay, so what happened in the past, because we're past the spoiler warning, I can talk about it, is that he trained an apprentice to the point where they could get themselves in trouble. They messed something up and ended up having an accident that killed themselves, their kids.
Well, rather, Grandpa took, I believe his name is Red, to the spirit world, and he kind of lost it and went berserk and killed his children, set his house on fire, and then ran into the woods.
Yeah, that's pretty dramatic. That's pretty soap opera melodrama. Wow.
So, Grandpa does have reasons for not wanting to bring anybody new into the spirituality too fast. That kinda went sideways last time, to put it lightly.
Yeah, and since the island is so interwoven that his apprentice was also his best friend's son. So that's fun. So his best friend is trying not to hold it against him, Grandpa and the archivist were best friends. Just it's hard to describe without, holding up pictures of these people.
Like, as you play it, you understand, because you purposely go out of your way to interact with these characters, and so you know their name, their appearance, the tropes that they fall into, because, most of them have, like, those tropes. Like, the gossip, the romantic one, the pregnant one.
The pregnant one. I don't think I'm not upset that you don't watch soap operas, but I think you have a misconstrued idea of what soap operas are like. And the one time you saw a Turkish soap opera doesn't count. And I don't really think you were paying that much of attention. You're just busy watching your mom laugh.
Yeah, I was trying to connect to the internet over the very spotty Wi-Fi. I wanted home.
Yeah, don't we all? So,
Anyway, that was the thing.
so the point of bringing up the tragedy, that's why Grandpa's being so sketchy and vague when he's trying to teach Kai about what he does, because he thinks that she needs to take his place somewhat to heal the island.
Yeah, because he keeps making mistakes. He keeps leading the island astray.
Yeah, it's like this, the papu tree at the center of the island, kinda. It's very much to the, survival of its ecosystem.
Yeah, it's kind of like the core of the ecosystem, both physically and magically, I think.
I would say that,
Both an
yeah.
ecological and spiritual center of Mutazone. And
Yeah.
it's, kinda on a downward trend. That's what the shit is for. They're trying to fertilize the tree so it'll be happy again.
Yeah, which means that it's physically taken care of, it just needs its spiritual needs taken care of. And guess who's been neglecting to do that because he's scared about the actions he's taken?
Yeah, that sounds like Grandpa. It sounds a lot like Grandpa. And I think we all know people in our lives that make one big mistake and then they get so triggered by everything around it that they refuse to even look at it. It becomes a blind spot, and then they start neglecting everything that has to do with it, making the problems worse. And that's compounded in this case by the fact that he's the only one with that knowledge, because the lady who passed it to him isn't around anymore.
Yeah, she passed away at some point.
Right, but she already seems to have had an abnormally long life before that happened.
Yeah, because, like, it sounds like, she survived the Moondragon impact, and it's kind of ambiguous how long it's been.
I don't think so far in our recording we've mentioned the name of the meteor.
Sorry.
It's fine. I just want to mention that right now, is that we...
The meteor is referred to as Moondragon. It's not the hip new mobile app that's sponsoring us.
We're not sponsored. Please do not take that seriously.
I have no idea if Moondragon is anything else besides the meteor that hit Mutazione. And that created Mutazione, because Mutazione was not Mutazione until Moondragon.
If there's any mobile game or otherwise called Moondragon Impact, they are not sponsoring us, and I cannot currently confirm their existence. It's just a joke.
Guys, I just had a great idea for a new product.
Oh.
Not this again.
Well, if you want a market, you have to create a market. We've learned a lot from sausages. That's our new tagline. No.
Please, no. I don't even want that to be the tagline of this episode. Please.
It won't be. It'll be a meme at best, and you'll have to make it, because...
I can't believe you'd make me do this.
Really?
Yes, I can.
So yeah, next episode we're changing genres completely, and we're gonna be a cooking podcast.
No.
I'm sorry. Is that a thing? I'm sure there are people who talk about cooking in podcasts, but would you really like to sit there and listen to people cook? Unless that does some ASMR thing for you, would you really, enjoy listening to people cook versus watching them?
Chop. Ow! I sliced my finger!
Okay, so yeah, as this tangent has shown you, it's much like Mutazione, there's plenty of, thoughtfulness and drama.
But there's also comic relief, and I'm so grateful for that. And I love, again, we're going back to the sausages. It's I love that their comic relief is also a commentary on capitalism. What? What is this game?
You normally you ask, who does this? But at this point, it feels like, we keep purposely finding people who, quote, does this,
Hey, if us paying attention to it and commenting on it encourages them to create more, then who am I to argue? And by the way, gute fabrik, the developer of this game, just put out a new one that I wasn't aware of until we started getting ready to record this. So they just had a new game come out called the Saltsea Chronicles earlier in October here. And I'm really looking forward to playing it. We have not bought that yet or played it yet, but...
Yeah, leave a like if you want us to play it.
Feel free to comment if you have and to encourage us to play it or whatever. Comment. We enjoy comments, just to let you know.
No spoilers unless the dog dies.
Is there a dog?
I don't know. That's why I'm making that joke.
I know, but now I'm sad.
We don't even know if this dog exists.
Well, okay. How do we get back on the track here?
Okay, anyway, how about talking more about Grandpa's storyline here? While we have the sausages to kind of deconstruct capitalism, we actually have Grandpa's story as well to discuss colonialism.
Dun dun dun!
Because it turns out Grandpa and Grandma moved to Mutazione not just to move there. They came with a research expedition, and the magicalness of the island did not like what they were doing, so it killed all of the research team except for Grandma and Grandpa.
Eyes wide. I'm sitting here with wide eyes, remembering
Yeah. And so not only Grandpa also has survivor's guilt about this, as well as being an outsider who has this very intricate knowledge about how the island works and is maintained that he no longer wants to have as an outsider. And that's why he tried to give it back to the island, to the residents. He tried to give it back to the mutants who live there, and it failed. And now he just does not want to try anymore. And I just love that, because as a white person in America, I have a lot of guilt about the past that I had nothing to do with. And it's kind of nice to see, a depiction of somebody who is involved in something that wasn't great, we'll say, having remorse and not taking it well.
And can I add to that it actually is helpful to see it played out in a male-embodied person?
Yeah.
I want to say that. It is like, it is nice to see that narrative played out in the people who benefited the most from the power structure that we suffer under.
Yeah.
Even though he's not white.
Yeah.
Nobody is in this.
No, I don't think, I don't think there's a single white person, no.
Which is okay. Normally that wouldn't even come up, so.
Then again, how can you tell with mutants anyway? Does it apply?
No.
Is Spike a white guy?
Ooh. Spike might be a white guy.
Maybe.
I don't know, we can debate that, but also it's like,
Does it matter?
does that have to be what this is about? And, when we're talking about colonialism, that stuff does bubble up, but also it's a stylized aesthetic for a video game narrative, so it's not one-to-one anyway, and the way America needs to look at race is very... I don't want to get into this right now. I really don't. But, yeah, it is really interesting to be presented a narrative from a child's perspective, teenager's perspective, to where her grandpa has participated in all kinds of stuff, and now he's dealing with the mental anguish of, his personal reckoning for what he's participated in. And now he's finding himself, via circumstances that he does not enjoy at all, having to face his fears and put his own granddaughter at risk. That is probably the last thing he ever would have chosen, he's like, I want to carry this burden myself, but I'm dying instead. I have no choice but to pass it on. And I have to pass it on to my own kin, apparently? Great. This is just great. Mm-hmm. So his skittishness and his weirdness around how he behaves with Kai is understandable, but it also is kind of Dumbledore. It is. It's like you feel last time you gave them too much knowledge, so this time you're trickling knowledge. You don't want her to progress too fast so she doesn't go insane. And the thing is I think it was hubris on the part of that other kid, because it was part of his culture. He knew what kind of power and prestige that position was going to bestow upon him if he succeeded Nano in his role, right? Meanwhile, Kai doesn't want it, doesn't care about it, doesn't have a historical vested interest in it. Is also a girl. It's gonna be completely different, and he doesn't give her a chance to be who she is and let him get to know who she is before he decides how to proceed with compensating for her tendencies. And that's a huge downfall, which, of course for him is trauma related, that he's looking at this through a historical, oh my god, the consequences lens, the consequences. It's like the sausages talking about capitalism. The consequences are of things that aren't even going to affect this kid because she's an outsider, they don't apply. But you haven't given that any thought, so you are putting whole bunches of crap on her that don't belong there. And of course the narrative lets it play out to where she's like, yep, I got this. It's like, I didn't want it. It's mine. I'll handle it. I got this.
And, I think part of how the game ends is that, starting to have this shift where there's one central figure who's keeping the magic, but it, in general, is a communal thing to make sure that the plants keep growing and the gardens are maintained.
No, I think it dispersed itself. Now it's the gardens, and as long as the community takes care of the gardens, then they don't need a central figure in it anymore. They need the knowledge to be maintained. They need that to be passed on, but it can be held in all of them, rather than just in one person safeguarding the knowledge. It's just you gotta keep the kids out of the mall, Well, you'll get eaten by centipedes. You'll get eaten by centipedes if you go in the mall. So just don't go in the mall.
Just the sentiment of, don't go in the mall.
Yes. Don't go in the mall.
Don't go in the mall. I feel
just to let listeners know, in the end, when Kai has to go and save the tree, the guardians of the tree, which were the ones who killed the researchers, I think.
Yeah.
If you know what you're doing, you can use a specific plant spore, I believe.
It's the flower of the papu tree.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. You make the tree happy, the tree will give you a flower. You use the flower as a token to say, I'm allowed to go talk to the tree. The centipedes don't eat you. Meanwhile, they live in an old abandoned mall, so that's what we're talking about. So if you go in the old abandoned mall and you don't have the blessing of the papu tree to go in there, the centipedes will eat you. So don't go in the mall. Just don't go in the mall, kids.
Yeah, just don't do that.
Go play in the monorail, but don't go in the mall.
Go talk to Jelly.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know how to describe Jelly.
How about awesome?
Jelly is an awesome mutant creature whose
a fungus.
Oh, yeah.
They were fungus. They were... Okay, lore-wise, the researchers experimented with the fungus under the papu tree and created gelée. There you go.
I guess I'd forgotten that they created gelée, but gelee's great.
And most of the people you meet on the island are, like, either, humans from the mainland or, sort of human people who have, changed by the meteor, but gelée was just kind of made a person at some point afterwards, given a more personhood status.
But they don't go into the philosophical implications of the fact that it's possible to create sentient life at all, which is good. I'm glad they kept that out of the scope and scale of this chill narrative, because it's like, despite all this stuff we've been talking about after the spoiler warning, it's still a chill narrative. Which is just so hard to... It's like, I don't know how you maintain that, except for the fact that the whole feeling of exploring abandoned places, the fact that it's overgrown and peaceful, and the soundtrack itself. Between the aesthetic and the soundtrack, there's just this cohesive vibe. It's got natural tones to it. The aesthetic, as far as the images go, there's plants, like, everywhere. There's plants draped over everything. And little animals and big animals and birds all over the place. And the music also includes these little noises that are reminiscent of, like, bird chirps and, like, little animal chirps and just these echoey little noises that go through the sounds. I encourage you to just listen to the soundtrack. It's a great one to, like, have on in the background while you're doing other things. It's very cool.
Isn't it 4 hours long?
It is 4 hours long, yeah. It's not one you just sit down and intensely listen to.
Yeah, sitting down and listening to it intensely, that's just not what it is. It's not what it's for.
In fact, the game itself is not for sitting down and enjoying all in one sitting or super intensely either.
Yeah, I tried to, for research for today, to, like, revisit the game. I was trying to get through some of it, and then I realized, like, how terrible the game is when you try to just push through it, and it's like, that's not what this is about at all. I want to go stop for lunch.
Stopping to smell the proverbial roses is not something you can do in this game. It is the game.
Yeah, just take your time. If you want to make sure you don't miss, like, any bit of conversation, go ahead. If you want to sit and stare at the sea for a while, do it. It's beautiful.
So yeah, it's like, part of this game's mechanical structure is that it's set over the course of 1 week. And as you have certain interactions, the time of day will progress. These very specific interactions that the game will visually indicate to you are time progressing things.
Right. So you can look around and walk around as long as you want with no pressure. When you're ready to move on, you interact in the one way that it tells you will progress the time, which means you can't miss something that you need to progress. For the story to go on, for you to collect it, for you to not collect everything, it's not that kind of game, but for you to do what you need to do to make sure you don't miss part of the story, it only lets the time progress once you do a specific thing. But it'll warn you that that's what that's going to be, so if you're not ready to do that yet, you'll notice and go, oh, okay, I'm going to save that until I've done everything else, and then I'll come back and progress the time. But once you do, you can't go back.
It's a limited time frame that only goes in one direction, but it is waiting on you to decide when to go forward.
I love the way that that's handled. I love it.
Yeah, I wish that was more evident in a lot of other games, where they would give you that kind of subtle warning that if you're not ready to move on without, like, are you sure you're ready to progress the game?
Yeah, because that just always gives me anxiety.
Right. Oh, shoot, what am I missing?
Uh-huh.
And this is like, no, this is what you need to do when you're ready to move on. When you're ready to move on, it's right here.
Yeah, typically it's also, like, the last entry in your journal that you use to keep track of events that are happening in that time frame as well. So typically if you look at your journal, you know exactly where you need to end up when you're done.
And if you ever have too big a gap between your play sessions, you can go into the journal and read up, and all the important points will be right there. All the drama is all written out for you in the journal. When people confide in you, you're like, oh, why did they tell me this? In the journal. And
what am I going to do with this information?
I'm going to write it in the journal so I don't forget. Meanwhile, I hope you keep that in the backpack and nobody gets to see it, because that'll make everything blow up soon.
I mean, like, stuff does kind of, blow up a little bit, but, like, we could just escalate the situation. We could just,
save it for your fanfic.
We could do a reading in the bar.
That's almost a little too on the nose.
Look, if I don't do it, then Mew will do it.
Yes, Mew will.
How many crickets?
don't think Dennis is a cricket.
His name's not Criminy? I don't know where this,
It's his cousin.
His cousin. Okie dokie.
Alright.
Anything else we need to talk about for Mutazione?
I think I've gushed about the narrative enough for one day.
it's like there's still a whole other big dramatic facet in this game we haven't even talked about.
Do we need to talk about everything?
No, I'm just like,
Yeah,
even when we're digging into the spoilers, it's like, yeah, we got the big sort of stuff that, like, the finale of the game and whatnot is centered around. It is this big overarching thing. But there's a bunch of other stuff that...
It's like, oh, this plot twister. Oh, what happens with this character?
Mm-hmm. But I think we might leave that for you.
Yeah, it might be the biggest thing, but we don't even need to get into everything.
We wanted to give you a spoiler warning because we were going to talk about the end, because it's important to acknowledge and be respectful of all of the work they put into having such a influential narrative.
I want more narratives that tackle heavy stuff like this. I want to see it. I want to see more.
Yeah, and...
You know, it's like they didn't necessarily have to set a lot of this stuff in the, context of a remote island that has been, hit by a blatantly fictional phenomenon, but it's like, yeah, the mutations and the meteor does for the story is, yeah, it puts it in the territory of a neutral example.
And we do love a neutral example. Neutral examples are wonderful foil for discussing things that are actually happening that are hard to talk about when it might feel like a personal attack. It's easy to talk about Nano's guilt while not having to talk about our own. Even though you're able to say, yeah, I feel it because of the guilt I also carry. Yeah. That's why we may have some compassion for Nano and Nano's story. So, it's Grandpa. Grandpa's Nano. I'm going to say that again out loud, but yeah. Neutral example. High five. But yeah, I wanted to say that I'm noticing the more we play these games and the more you dig them up from where you find them, which I guess is mostly itch, but there's a lot of small game developers out of Europe that are doing these kind of deep dives in a deceptively subtle story. A deceptively casual story will have all of these background things going on that are commenting on capitalism, that are commenting on colonialism, that are, just like these big things that are happening political on the world stage. We have these now neutral examples to talk about. It's like, I think so-and-so was wrong when they did this thing.
It's almost like games are an art form.
Which leads us into where we're going next. There was a time when the public narrative really asked the question whether video games could be art. There was a time when a specific man made some really flippant public statements about that question. This inspired a lot of people to prove him wrong. I'm going to say that. It led to a couple of the games that we've already talked about. It led to, let's just say, a fine bromance. Wink, wink. And
I mean, honestly, I think Journey resulted from this harsh criticism because that game company received a bit of brunt of this criticism and for their game Flower, and then they made Journey, which leans even more into this art aspect, but that's not what we're talking about.
You could save that for the episode.
Yeah, I kind of...
We still can.
More about that later.
Yeah. If you hear it twice, you heard it first here.
You're not imagining things. You have heard it before.
And we're allowed to repeat ourselves. Especially when we're talking about something as important to me, at least specifically. And this is like almost... Yeah, it affected me too, okay? I hate to say it. I do. I don't want to give... Okay, I'm talking about Roger Ebert, okay? And the next episode will be... It's a 2-part series about video games as art. Episode 1 is the only one I have a title for so far. And it's Roger Ebert's Mess. And I can't wait to tell you more about it. But you'll have to wait and join us next time. In the meantime, you can catch Honeyshuckle on Twitch and Sackbot and I in our previous episodes. Go ahead and check out
and
our catalog.
And you can catch Giggleklutz on the blog.
That's true. You can catch me over there. I'm not sure what's going to go into this episode's version of the blog, but I'm sure I'll think of something fun.
Except for memes.
Well,
we almost
yeah.
always bring memes.
Well, I don't bring the memes. You guys make the memes. I just make sure they end up there. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Feel free to comment here or on the blog. We do have a blog at collabnotmultiplayer.com. And there's extensive stuff from last episode if you want to go and read me going on and on and on. But yeah, thank you so much for all of your views so far and your likes, and we love comments. We'll happily take feedback.
And this channel has been growing so much faster than I thought it would. Like, I know we're still a tiny channel, but sometimes you still don't expect the response you get, and it warms my heart.
Thank you so much for that. This has been Collab Not Multiplayer. I'm Giggleklutz.
I'm Honeyshuckleex.
And I'm Sackbot Barbecue.
Goodbye. Bye.
Bye.